We're here with Ross Dollinger of SI.com, and we're going to talk a little about getting into the journalism industry and kind of once you're there, how to balance it all. Thank you for joining me today, Ross. All right,
Sure thing, man.
I think I asked this before with you, but what's your best advice to a young journalist?
Well, advice, yeah, the best advice probably is to not just rely on, at least when you're in college, just rely on the classroom. Uh, so you need to do things outside of the classroom, branch out, and do things like what we just talked about with you, like internships, freelance opportunities, part-time jobs, anything to collect real world, like on the ground experience, because you can only learn, so much from the classroom. So that would be probably the biggest advice, and the things that help me most of all is collecting clips while I was in college, doing freelance and part-time work. I remember one year I'm a Mississippi State grad, and one year I was like on the payroll for 8 different places. That's probably my junior or senior year, just juggling um, freelance and streaming opportunities. That's probably my number one. And the campus newspaper is always great, and you learn a lot there. But even branching out of that and going off campus is really important.
Yeah, and that kind of leads to how do you balance it all, especially if you were, as you have a lot of you're national, so how do you balance it nationally? But even when you were in college, how did you balance all doing 8 different roles?
Yeah, I mean, it could be, it obviously was really really busy at times. I tried to limit my class schedule, knowing that I was going to be doing a lot of on the ground reporting and such. So I don't think I took more than 4 or 5 classes a semester, so I could have time to do a lot of stringing and freelance work. And it can be tough. There were times where I probably could have been partying with friends or whatever, and instead was at a game, writing on deadline. But that's the kind of the route that I took, and at times you just my late college years, junior and senior, probably didn't feel much like college years. It kind of felt like I was already out in the world, in the business world. Which again, you lose some of that college experience, but you kind of hit the ground running more so when you leave college.
And kind of in that just like a work life balance, how do you, especially because it's sports, like how do you when you're watching a sporting event, how do you not allow that to kind of creep into work?
Well, this is probably going to surprise you and others, but I don't watch sports as much in my free time. It is work for me. It used to not be like that, but I'm on year, 15 of being a sports writer, and I would say I would say with each year, I my interest in watching sports in my free time decreases. And that's just, you know, how it's been. I mean, I used to be a big watcher of college basketball and a big watcher of golf, even tennis, of course, college football. And now in my free time, I watch golf every now and then. That's about it. And it's just so for me, I have separated those two things in a lot of ways. And it probably has to do with, yeah, like my job is to watch and write about sports. So when I have free time, I don't necessarily like to watch sports anymore. Like I said, it probably wasn't the case 6, 8 years ago, but it's kind of gotten that way lately.
So when you're national, how do you kind of find sources to like report on like the Brian Harson issue? I know you kind of have some ties to the South already, but like how do you find people like you can talk to?
Yeah, you do drift. You drift toward where your contacts are, where your relationships already are, which, like you said, for me was the SEC footprint and the South in general. And you, this is advice I give a lot of young journalists in journalism classes is um, you treat people sources like you would want to be treated as a normal, like you treat them like a normal friend or human. You humanize yourself as a journalist by going to lunch with them or buying them beer or something like that. That establishes a relationship, and you just build off of that. You build off of that. But I think too many coaches, administrators, players, whoever, believe that journalists are the evil and can't be friendly with them. And journalists sometimes feel that way too. They'll be too much by the journalism books. Sometimes throw the book out and get closer with people and build relationships with them. Now you can get too close, and that's happened, and sometimes that can make for uncomfortable moments. But that's part of the kind of part of the job.
Uh, and then kind of with that, because I guess sources and when you get a beat, you kind of got take some sources. What's your tips for covering a beat, especially maybe one that isn't getting, like Alabama football people will read, but maybe like a smaller beat, some people don't read. Like, you got any tips?
Well, people always love reading interesting stories. So any interesting story, whether it be a profile on a player or coach or players' parents or something, finding really interesting stories in human interest stories are important. It's kind of an old saying that we don't really write about sports, or I don't view it that way. We write about people, and people just happen to play sports. These people that we write about, and so a lot of times it's digging deep on the person, not necessarily the sport. Who cares what kind of stats they had, or even what they do during training. Find out about their family, their friends, what they do when they're at home and such. Any human interest story, you can turn any sport into a human interest story, and people find that interesting no matter the sport.
And then this is kind of my final question. Where do you think the industry kind of goes from here?
Well, it seems to be going obviously toward digital and social. That's kind of where, like, I can't really tell you the last time I went to a homepage of any website at all. So I just, all of my content comes from social and clicking off of social. So we seem to be headed toward a place that isn't always journalistically sound. I mean, sometimes it's kind of unfortunate in the way we're heading, but that's the way we're heading. We're heading toward a digital only social media driven area, and you gotta change, and you gotta adapt if you're an older journalist into doing that.
And it kind of, I'm with a newspaper, you're with a magazine company. Kind of where do you think they end up?
Well, yeah, 2 years ago or so at SI, we started uh, just because we've cut down on how much we publish in print now. We started a digital daily cover from Monday through Friday, and we have what would be considered a magazine story, and we make a cover off of it, and off of the old SI covers we use, and we make a cover off of it. And that's been really successful for us because we don't have a magazine anymore every week. Those stories would be in a magazine, and so now we push them out digitally, and that's a good example of adapting. We probably did it a little too late, but we did it, and I don't think print is going to be something that exists much of in 5, even 5, 10 years. So you have to change and adapt, and take as much as you can take print um, approaches to the digital scene.
All right. Well, thank you for letting me interview you today. I always appreciate the insight you give.
Yeah, no problem, Max.